We are going to move on to the next topic. And I thought this was a kind of a fun article from ESPN. It was the best and worst of the past decade in the NFL. So from 2010 to 2020, what was the best and the worst? And you go through the best team, of course, was the Patriots. I don't think there's any dispute.
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah.
No argument there.
The worst team,
Like 'em
of
or hate 'em.
course, is Cleveland Browns. They're bad. And then, of course, the best coach would be from the best team, the Patriots. And the worst coach would be from the worst team, Hugh Jackson.
See, I thought those were kind of redundant. It's like, I think if you say the best team and the worst team, it kind of implies the coach is involved in that.
You know, and also, I like how they try to hype him up a little bit with 11, 44, and 1. But that includes what he did at the Raiders, I believe they said. And he actually he started 1 and 31 in Cleveland. Yeah. And the next season, he went 2, 5, and 1. So he finished 3, 36, and 1 as the Cleveland head coach.
So who did they beat? No, that was Detroit that went 1 and 15 and beat the Redskins. Were the only ones they beat, right? When that Detroit?
No. The Detroit went 0 and 16 the one year, and then their first win after the 0 and 16 was us. So they hadn't won like 22 games straight, and then they beat us. No, we actually have beaten the Browns the last few times we've played them. Best free agent signing, I didn't see really a dispute here. I mean, you got a Hall of Fame quarterback who broke records when he got there, went to the Super Bowl twice and won one. So I thought that was legitimate.
You know, and I'm having a hard time remembering, at what point did he really mess up? He get his neck fused, and that's when he really seemed to lose all the strength in his arms. Was that the last year or the second to the last year?
No, he got his neck fused back in 2011, 2012 when they drafted Andrew Luck. Like, that was the problem. He got his surgery. So he was actually able to get a few more good years in, but by the end of it, his arm was so shot that it was just nerve damage and everything that it was a fluttering duck. It was really bad. This one was interesting. I did not think of Brock Osweiler, and at first I'm like, you know what, maybe I could think of one better, but this got me. They signed him to the contract without him ever meeting the head coach.
Right.
$72 million was no joke back in the day. Like, paying somebody $72 million was a decent chunk of change back in 2016.
Oh, absolutely.
He went 15 touchdowns, 60 interceptions before being benched, and then was just gotten rid of. And on top of getting rid of him, in order to get rid of his contract, they had to get rid of a second-round draft pick as well to Cleveland.
Yeah, why do I feel like we had this conversation related to Kirk Cousins at some point when we were having a debate on paying people money, and I'm like, I don't know why I have the recollection
you don't pay a quarterback a bunch of money off of a 1-year wonder. Like, he beat the Patriots the year before when Peyton Manning got hurt. He won a couple other games. Like, he looked like he had a chance to beat, and he's like super big. I think he's like 6'5". Excuse me, like 6'6" quarterback. So he looks like the prototypical quarterback. And so that's why they ended up paying him big. Fantasy player, I don't really have a dispute with Antonio Brown. I think he did great. Like, when he played up until last year, he was a baller. Worst one, this is a pretty good one. Doug Martin, especially where he was drafted. A lot of people drafted him pretty high when after that rookie season, and consistently he was hurt or just sucked it up for every year after that. But my worst fantasy draft pick, and my friends will laugh at me for saying this, is Corey Davis. Year in and year out, I drafted, this is going to be the year, Corey Davis, from wide receiver from Tennessee. This is going to be his breakout year. He's good. He was a 5th overall pick in 2016, I believe, when they drafted him. Like, this guy is legit, and he's going to play. I draft him every year, and every year he sucks. And he doesn't even get hurt. He just stinks. Like, they don't give him the ball, and you can't blame the team because A.J. Brown just got drafted, and A.J. Brown just went crazy last year for Tennessee. So,
by the way, just this category we're in is free agency, right? Not fantasy.
No, it's fantasy player.
Oh, so Peyton Manning was the best fantasy. I thought it said free agent player.
Oh, no, sorry, yeah. The best free agent signing was Peyton Manning.
Okay, I'm sorry. We jumped.
We jumped into the next
I've caught up
time.
now. Sorry.
No, you're fine. The best offense, the Patriots. I think like one of the only ones that would contend might be the Saints for the decade. Saints always had a consistently year in and year out really great offense. Marcus Colston.
What about
back
Green
in the day.
Bay?
Green Bay. Green Bay is another good choice with Aaron Rodgers and everybody. Like, yeah, I would not be disappointed in that one. I guess the only thing you would say is that Aaron Rodgers has had a couple of injury concerns. I don't know.
Yeah, and I can't argue with the Patriots as the most consistent. They always show up every year and seem to produce. Other than I guess last year was the beginning of the end, but
worst offense was Jacksonville. I mean, you can't argue with the stats. I mean, last in offensive efficiency, 31st in points per game, last in yards per game. I mean, it's hard to beat that.
Well, and I'll say this, that this is a little bit subjective too, that, or I guess subjective is the right word, that, this, or I guess Jacksonville tended to have a pretty good defense this last decade, so it probably wouldn't fit here. But worst offense could also be a product of the fact that your defense can't get off the field and you don't get the ball very much. You know what I'm saying?
But
it's like
so if you say all, but then again, like year in and year out, like this is over a 10-year period. You're lasting all of these.
I get it.
Maybe a season you could blame the defense for being that bad, but when you're consistently that bad, I don't think that necessarily holds water always.
And I guess now that I think about it, that if you're a good offense, then if you get the ball, you score, and the other team gets the ball and they score, then the defense, it doesn't matter what your defense is doing if you keep scoring. So I realize that.
Best defense was the Ravens. I was trying to think maybe the Seahawks had a competitive here.
What about the Broncos?
The Broncos had a couple of years where they were really, really good. With Wade Phillips, but I think they've kind of
not over the whole decade. Yeah,
they had some top tier years.
How about the 49ers? They didn't come along until later.
49ers, like the last 4 or 5 years, or whatever, they've been drafting defensive linemen, and now their defense has come out to be really something special. But there was years there that you did not want to touch the fantasy.
Yeah, I was just
Niners
trying
defense.
to figure out if there's anybody that I could argue were better than the Ravens, and
the one I thought
like
it was the Seahawks. The one I thought it was the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks had a really, really good defense over the years. I'd be curious.
Yeah, the Legion of Boom. Wasn't it the Legion of Boom?
Yep, the Legion of Boom. Yep.
I will say, and just as a real quick aside, I loved what their defense, the Seattle Seahawks in their prime or their heyday of their defense, that they didn't shift. They didn't do any they basically lined up 11 guys and said, "I got here." And you know what I'm saying? It's like they didn't have any, shift this guy in, do all of it. They just, I line up in my spot and I cover my spot and you're not going to beat us. And they executed it to perfection.
Right. Raiders were the worst. So this is where I have a dispute. The best game, the 25-point deficit comeback, 28-3 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, how is that? Most exciting game, maybe? But
I don't even think I don't even think that's the case.
I mean, I could at least see the argument that the most exciting comeback or the best comeback, but to say that was the best game, no, the Falcons fell apart.
Right. My favorite game was the Patriots versus Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC Championship of 2018. What a game. Just take a look at this real quick. In the fourth quarter, you had Kansas City get the ball, touchdown, 7 minutes and 45 seconds left. 4 minutes later, Patriots score a touchdown. A minute and a half later, Kansas City answers and takes the lead, 28-24. A minute and 20 seconds later, boom, Patriots score and take the lead, 31-28. Then, with 39 seconds left, like 30 seconds after the kickoff, Kansas City gets the ball back, and they get into field goal range to send it into overtime. Whoever had that ball last could not be stopped. Tom Brady versus Pat Mahomes, passing of the torch almost. Like, if Pat Mahomes would have won that would have been the passing of the torch of, here you go, you are now the best quarterback in the league. Yeah. I'm old.
Yeah, Tom kind of said, not quite yet, young fella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, it's amazing. But even, like, it's funny, too. Like, it's a 10-yard run and a 10-yard run, a 2-yard run. So, all of these talk about the quarterbacks, and everybody that was scoring was the running backs. Damian Williams, all the touchdowns of the fourth quarter were running backs.
Yeah, but I have a feeling there was a lot of passing to get those run plays in position.
And then Rex Burkhead again with a 2-yard run. All the final touchdowns with those two great quarterbacks in the fourth quarter and overtime. You had rushing touchdowns, but you just had great drives and great plays. Like it was a fantastic game to watch.
Well, like I said, if your passing game gets you down there, but when you're inside the 5-yard line, passing becomes a lot more difficult because you have the safeties don't have to cover. There's nobody that has to cover deep. You have 7 guys.
Even the touchdown passes were running backs. A 1-yard TD pass to Damian Williams, 23-yard pass. That was I don't remember that play specifically, but I remember watching this game. It was actually in your basement that we were watching that game, and it was a fantastic back and forth affair going deep. Whereas, as you said, the Falcons just fell apart. There was no more Falcons in the Super Bowl.
No, it's like, okay, how stupid do you have to be, if I'm not mistaken, they were inside the 30-yard line, and their quarterback, I can't remember who it is right now, but actually had a play where he was sacked for a 12-yard loss, I want to say, or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the exact, but to be well into field goal range and then let yourself get sacked, because if he hits that field goal, the game's over. Mm-hmm. It is, and they get knocked out. I can't remember the exact numbers. I just remember he got sacked for a huge loss, and they're like, you can't do that. And
right.
So yeah, that was not a. I agree with you. Something where both teams are at the top of their game and they're going back and forth, and it's like this is a shootout, and two teams that are great on offense just were going at each other, and the defenses were just they had their hands full. That's an exciting game. To have one team completely fall apart and have another team come back that's not. I would not classify
another game that you could say that wasn't as big as far as a playoff game, but another game you could talk about was the Chiefs-Rams, where it was that 54-51 game or something crazy. There was a bunch of turnovers in that game too, though. Defensive touchdowns. That game was all over the place. I think they said Pat Mahomes had 5 turnovers that game. So that's even, and I think Jared Goff had a couple turnovers too. So that was not a perfect game by any stretch, but still high scoring, a battle to the finish. Last second win. It's this one was but this one was one of my favorites. I just remember watching this live thinking that was a really, really good football game.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just kind of some random stuff. You can talk about the biggest change was the stuff with the concussions. Best player Tom Brady. But there's a couple things they didn't bring up that I thought were interesting, which was the best draft pick and the worst draft pick. Did you look into or have any thoughts of which ones you thought?
I didn't really get a chance to look into. I would have to say the best draft pick, if I had to, would lean towards one of the defensive greats, whether it's Mack or
Khalil Mack.
Miller.
I think the best draft pick, hands down, in my opinion, is Russell Wilson. You got him in the 3rd round. He's an all-time great.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
It's Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is hands down the best draft pick in the 2010s. You got him in 2012. He went to the playoffs his first year. He's been a Super Bowl. No, not a Super Bowl MVP. He won the Super Bowl. Bobby Wagner won that Super Bowl MVP. But he's gone to another Super Bowl. He's going to, because they beat the Broncos and lost to the Patriots. But they're consistently year in and year out good. I like Russell Wilson.
That's a funny thing. I wouldn't have guessed. If you'd asked me when was he drafted, I would not have. I would have thought he was in the league longer than RG3.
Nope, the same year. Him,
that's
Andrew
what I'm
Luck,
saying.
and Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III were all three, and I think there was one more that was in that conversation, wasn't there? Maybe not. Anyway, those three, those were the big rookie breakouts that year. But 3rd round, 75th pick, hands down. Now the worst draft pick. I think this is funny. It's fantastic. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Robert Aguayo. I don't even remember how to say his name. Kicker. They drafted him in the 2nd round, 59th pick. Okay? But not only that, they traded up to get him. So they traded their 3rd round and 4th round to go up and get the Robert Aguiye from, I believe it was, from Florida State University. And then on top of that, look at his stats. His career was, it was 22 of 31 on field goals his first year. He then gets benched. They don't want him. And in the preseason, he misses a 47-yard field goal and an extra point. And I think that was before they moved the extra point back. I think he just missed a short extra point.
And that's the equivalent to somebody that playing fantasy football and drafts a kicker on the 3rd pick.
It's not only that, but somehow in fantasy football you traded up to go get him. It's the worst.
By the way, I would argue.
What's up, guys? Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. The like button is on this side for mobile. If you have any of your own thoughts or questions, comment down below. We may just answer it next video. Thanks. See ya.